Architects, with all our gods have abandoned us, and architects fans, what do you guys call yourselves, the Architects Club? Whatever, doesn't really matter. You should be very proud of your own, as this, so far in 2016, has been one of the biggest requested album reviews of the year. So, those of your fan base that are also a member of the Cover Killer Nation have really represented you very well. This is a group that's now on their 7th album. They're based out of the UK, but they went to Sweden once again in order to tap into their production team in order to get this album recorded. It is now out. It is something that's now available. If you're a fan, it's your lucky day. Go out and pick that shit up. Now, what's there really to say about this group? It's a group that has had, to some, a bit of an identity crisis. However, to the band themselves, they're just trying to explore their sound and try to explore what it is that they do. They have a metalcore sound that does a little bit more than what your traditional metalcore band would do. They want to explore the overall landscape with a bit more of a fine-tooth comb, maybe explore a little bit of post-hardcore direction, maybe even toss in a little bit of that progressive charm that sometimes emanates from this subgenre, especially lately. And what you get is something that is kind of unique. And in fact, one publication best stated that whereas other bands within this subtext of metal are aiming to be a little bit more mainstream, the Architects are just fine with maintaining and discovering more facets about their own identity. So, this is an album that starts immediately off with Neillist, which is about 3 minutes in length and features the title of the album directly within. And if there's one thing that you'll note right away is that those folks that say post-hardcore about this group are ones that have a definite one half of the puzzle correct. And it's one that post-hardcore has kind of gotten a bad rap over the past couple of years among some of its fan base, considering there's been sort of this blanket of bands that have been introduced into that subgenre, which is kind of accurate actually, but seems to be the opposite end of the fold, maybe a softer element to it, either that or one that has a little bit more of the mainstream idea in mind, as opposed to one that's trying to explore the whole of the subgenre or subgenre, whatever you prefer. Neillist is one that showcases that the band does have a lot of power, it has a lot of energy, and this is an energetic, darker sounding album, one that has a lot of raw ferocity behind it for these guys. So the heaviness is certainly something that should attract many of those that were sort of fringe line fans that maybe felt that some of their previous material was not quite heavy enough for them. And this is something that's seen as you progress through Deathwish, Phantom Fear, and going into Downfall. All of these showcase really what happens whenever you fuse metallic hardcore and create something that has a nice little balance behind it. If you think about other groups within this subtext, if you think about a group such as Bring Me the Horizon, it seems like that's one that teeters a little bit more towards some mainstream sensibilities. They're attempting to satisfy a market, whereas with Architects, the only people that they're attempting to satisfy is their own carnal hunger to produce a fantastic disc. And this first half certainly does that, and it really achieves it through just maintaining that identity, by maintaining and staying the course, but still providing enough of a subtle delineation between tracks in order to have each of them feel unique. The one thing that Architects doesn't have going for them on this disc is the fact that there is a simulacrum among many of the tracks. So there are many pacings, many tempos that are going to really feel like they have around the same static texture, but there's enough of a differential whenever you listen to each individual track, whenever you get into tracks such as Gone with the Wind and The Empty Hourglass, apologies for the stutter, that gives it enough kinetic energy to feel unique. And this is an album that I must say moves with that kinesis extremely well. It's one that flows very nicely. Flow and kinesis go together very well on a disc such as this, considering it's not one that really tries to tempt fate by halting momentum. You know, there's that fear that if you do that, you may never retrieve it back, or what happens afterward just may not seem as strong. But this is an album that doesn't dare fate. It is instead one that attempts to really use that kinesis and use that ability to really create some tracks that keeps your energy pumped and keeps your mind flowing too. There are some heavy elements that this album likes to talk about. There are some elements about death. There's some elements about the currency of our world. And I don't mean money. I mean the current nature of it. You know, it's, as one other publication stated, it's almost like architects' big, bold declaration to stand up and be counted. And this is probably best represented, and the elements of death best represented, in the 8-minute and 12-second long finale of this album entitled Memento Mori. Whenever you see this, it stands out on the entirety of the disc. And really, for a guy like me who reviews a ton of albums and loves to see that long track, that more experimental idea, right there at the end, to give it a little bit of character, to give it a little bit of attitude, maybe try something different, you just cannot, not appreciate a band that opts to do that, because it in itself is its own risk. If you're not able to carry over an 8-minute track, then it falls flat, and the album departs a listener's ear with kind of this really, really bad momentum shift. It kind of halts everything that you feel about a disc, because it's the last thing that you remember. However, pulling it off is something that almost universally results in an album's score rising, and an album's memory staying with a listener longer. Memento Mori does the latter. It's one that keeps the memory a lot more strong, considering you've had tracks that have been ranging, by the most part, in the 3.5 to 4 minute long margin, and then you have something that's double that, and it's a song that's able to take all the skills that they have, expand that atmosphere, expand that horizon, let the composition breathe, as I love to say. It takes you on a ride. They influx the programming and a little bit of the keyboards. They give you the whole Architects experience. They poured it all onto the table with this song, and it's one that certainly delivers. Memento Mori is definitely the highlight of this disc, and it's definitely the one that leaves you with the most thought. Overall, for the first Architects experience so far as reviewing is concerned, I was impressed with what I heard. It's not something that's going to immediately jut up the list and change my life forever, but Architects is a group that has a fan base that already has felt changed by this group, and this is an album that's going to further that philosophy, further that feeling. They're not going to feel as though they've been let down like perhaps they felt in the past, considering their last couple of albums have gotten some mixed response. However, with All Our Gods Have Left Us, it is certainly a disc that has a lot of encouraging signs, and it's one that feels like it has enough momentum going forward that Architects' next disc, the 8th or the 9th disc of this band's horizon, could be something truly special and really conjure up memories of whenever this band first got started. I would overall give this album an 82 out of 100. Strong material, very well represented, and very easy to listen to. That ease of listenability certainly aids this band in tons of ways, but the most important way is that once you throw this on, you're not tempted to toss it off. You're instead sort of just left there enthralled, and you can actually do other things and not realize that you've gone from track 1 all the way to track 10 in a very short period of time and have enjoyed yourself. It's not one that pauses you and reminds you that it's not great. It's instead one that remains so steady and so well crafted that it's acceptable. I want to know what you guys think about this disc. Let me know in the comments below. What do you think about Architects in general? My name is coverkillernation. It was my pleasure to talk about these guys finally, so thank you all for your requests. If you have any more, leave them in the comments as well, and I'll talk to you guys real soon. Take care.